All right, so we're back. So we left off at the end of the last video, creating most of the home page. But we finally created a nav bar, and we created. Let me go back to the site so I can show you. We created the nav bar with the navigation items, and we also created the footer. And we implemented font awesome as well. So and a lot of the stuff that is already coming from Bootstrap. So we're on a good path right now. A lot of this stuff is basically what you're going to need in order to create your structure. This is your architecture to build pretty much any page from from this point on. Excuse me, I gotta clear my throat here. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna go on with the rest of the site. I'm gonna show you how to create something like this that's gonna take the full width, and it's going to respond with the size of the browser, as you can see in my example here. And then we're gonna create the rest of the items and something that takes 3 columns as well in there. So that's hopefully all I'm gonna cover in this video, and then we'll move on to the other pages in the next videos. So let's go ahead and move on with the code here. So so here in the code I already minimized here the head, because we're not gonna do anything in there for a while. So I'll just go ahead and minimize it, and the nav bar or the navigation bar with all the items which is in here, I am also going to minimize that to get it out of the way. And then we have here the footer, which I'm also going to minimize, and this script doesn't really matter because there's nothing really there, but I'll minimize it anyway. And before I explained this comment here, these 2 comments and this temporary body, right? So, and what I have here basically is all a bunch of gibberish, a bunch of lorem ipsum, and this is basically just so I can have some kind of body here, so the page doesn't end up with, well, there's nothing there. So the page doesn't end up with the footer stuck to the nav bar. I created that, and I know that it's stuck over here, that you can see it because it's under it. It's the rest of this, the beginning of this text is up on the top, and it's also getting all the way to the edge, which is not ideal either. This this text here will be centered somewhere in the site, that it will have some dead space on each side of the content, and that's done for a reason. That's done so that whenever you're using, so whenever you have a website with some content in it, that it doesn't touch the border and makes it really hard to read and things like that. You always want to have some kind of dead space on the sides, okay? Except when you're creating some kind of modular slider or something like that, and such as the case as this, for example, or even this bar here. This is nothing but a container, and so is this here. So you want that kind of stuff, just like the header as well, and just like this, to be all the way from edge to edge. But this case, for example, you see that there's some dead space here and some dead space on this side, because you don't want this to be stuck on the side of the border of the browsers over here, or this one stuck on the browser border of the window over here. So that will look kind of funky, will look kind of weird. So so we're gonna go ahead and create this, which we don't need to have that kind of space, because it will touch the beginning and the end of the, horizontally. So the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to go ahead and get this temporary body stuff that we created. We're just going to go ahead and delete that. We're not going to need that anymore. That was just, like I said, temporarily. As you can see, temp body. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to introduce a new, actually, I'm going to delete all of this. We don't need any of this. So in here we're gonna integrate a new tag called section. So a section in a site, and I'm gonna go ahead and just put it in for now. A section on a site is considered basically, this is one of the semantic tags that I spoke about. It means exactly that, and that's the whole point, of semantic tags, to give you some meaning to the tag that you're actually using, because it has a legitimate purpose. It's not like a div like the one we had before, that it was an ambiguous tag, that it could be anything. So this one, a section, is exactly that. It's a section in the site. So this section, I'm gonna call this section, I'm gonna give it an ID, because eventually I'm going to want to use this. So do you have to create an ID for everything that you use? No. Like you can see here, this navbar doesn't have an ID. IDs and classes are, depending on whether you use them or not. But the difference between the ID and the class is simple. An ID is it's used a lot more for back-end development, but it can also be used for styling. You can style something based on an ID. So if we go to my style here and I look at the showcase, let me go ahead and do a quick finder here. Gotta put DW, there we go, showcase. You can see that I am styling the showcase with that image. Okay, I'm putting the image in here as the background, and that's the image that you will see here, that image right here. So you can style an ID just like I did here, but you can also use a class and it will work the same way. Primarily what you want to do, and the reason why I use an ID to style an ID here is just to show that you can do both, but primarily what you want to do is that you want to make this a class and use it as a class. If it's only strictly for design, use a class. And the reason why is because if I wanted two sections with the same with the same class, say for example I wanted two of them, and I wanted both sections to look exactly the same, so I could do this. Come on, there we go. Alright, I can do this. I can have two sections with the same class, and they will both show up in the browser with the exact same styles that I gave it. And that is perfect, because you can use classes repeatedly throughout the same document. Okay, what I cannot do is this. I can have an ID and an ID here on both sections named the same, because ID are unique identifiers. They need to be singularly used. So I can do that. I can have two IDs named differently, and then in the style create a showcase and a showcase 2, and then give it the same properties. But that is very redundant and not ideal, not a good way to do things. If you're going to use the same styles on more than one element, use a class so you don't have to repeat the CSS like this over and over and over. Okay, if you're gonna do it with a class, let me make sure I'm going to delete this, go back here. If you're gonna use a class, then what you want to do is you want to actually, I'm gonna backspace, there you go. You want to use a class instead of an ID. That way you can use it on both elements. And then here, instead of this hashtag, which represents that you're styling an ID, it should be a dot, which now represents that you're styling a class. So now if I use it like this, this showcase will show up on both of these. And you know what? A lot of the other stuff here needs a showcase ID instead of a class, so it's not gonna show right, but for the sake of it, I'm going to show it. And it probably won't work. Yeah, I knew it wouldn't work. So the reason why it wouldn't work is because there is more to it, as you can see here. So let me go ahead and turn them on up, turn them all over to classes. Okay, not yet. Where else? There we go. Oops, there we go. And the next one, it's fine, that's fine, that's fine, and that's fine. Do I have the image? Oh, I don't have the image. Okay. Alright, so now I know why it's not working in there. It's because, I'll go back here to show you. if you see here, I am referring an image called showcase that is inside of this folder image right in here. It's supposed to be in there, so I don't have that in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these images. Actually, I'm gonna get all of the images that I need while I'm out, and you will find these images in the GitHub that I'm going to push all of this stuff to at the end of the course, so you can get them there. So just give me a second here while I get them. Let me find them. So reveal, there we go. So these are the images that I need, and I'm gonna go ahead and copy this. Alright, so in here, reveal and explorer. There we go. And here we go. Here we go. I'm gonna pick that and pick this here, and I'm gonna grab this here, and I'm gonna Control C and put them in our copy. Alright, so now this stuff can just be pushed over to my other screen now. So now you can see that they're all working in there. And then look at this. Alright, so here we go. Because I used the showcase, it's using the same exact thing on the other side. Now, in this particular example that we're doing, we don't need two of these. We only need one. Right? We only need one. So it's okay to use an ID in this case. I just wanted to show you that if you use a class, you can repeat this section right here as many times as you want. As many times as you want, and it will continue to generate as many as you need without affecting anything. But if I used an ID for a lot of these, which in this case I have to, I'm going to Control Z all of this stuff to turn them back over to, there you go. Now if I use a hashtag for ID, obviously I don't show anything here because they're referencing classes, so I'm gonna have to turn this over to IDs. So if I use IDs, I'm not saying they won't show, but it's a bad implementation of the ID. It's not the right way to do it. So yeah, you can see it still shows, right? So, and that's alright. It shows because the HTML is not it's not a programmatic element, right? So it's basically telling you, you know, go ahead, you can, alright, never mind. I just wanted to check to see if there was any errors or warnings or something like that, but there isn't. That's fine. Alright, so HTML is not very programmatic, so it won't scream at you. It won't tell you, hey, you can't use IDs like this or whatever. But if you were using a piece of code that is a lot more programmatic, you would get errors in your console from Angular, from React, or whatever else you end up using, because IDs are supposed to be unique to each person, especially if you're dealing with a database. An ID, for example, like if you give an element an ID that is supposed to be called from the database so that they can be deleted or whatever, you're going to be deleting everything with that ID because you gave it to many people, too many elements. Alright, so go ahead and let's just delete that. So I just wanted to show the difference between an ID and a class, but you can always you know, research further into it on your own time. So go ahead and save that and get us here to where we are. So we're getting there. We have the image and it's already showing, and the style for this to show is here as I showed it before, and it has all this stuff which I'm not gonna go over because we're not doing CSS right now, but you should have all the styles already from from the source and that I added to the GitHub. Okay, all right. So moving along, inside the section, I want to start adding this text in here, which is mainly like a big one-liner, you know, to attract your customers, and a short explanation of anything great about your company and things like that. So I'm going to, since I need this to be centered and I want some dead space on the side, I'm going to introduce the, well, not introduce, we actually did it here, but I'm going to add a class container. So div class container, okay, and in this class container I'm gonna put an h1, and that's going to be called get in the, actually, you know what, look at this, in the best section section shape of your life. Check that out. You would say, okay, this is not right. Right? We have some that are not capitalized, some that are capitalized. We have a mix of stuff in here. Okay, so if I do this and I show here, look at this. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong one. Look at this. It looks weird, right? Not very nice. But here is all capitalized. Okay, so what I'm going to do, if I don't want to have to come over here and fix all these letters, I can give this a class. Okay, I can give this a class, and then I can make it call it capitalize, or capital letters, such as cap letters, cap words, yeah, cap words. Okay, and I can create that, and then I can highlight that, and I can come over here, I'm gonna put it at the very bottom. So if I want to add the capital words, then I can come over here and call it, man, there's so many of them, and I don't really use it that much. Transform. So yeah, there we go. I drew a blank there. Sorry about that. Text transform. Oops. Text transform, and then I can come over here, right here, actually capitalize, and I hit enter, and look at this. It capitalizes all of them. If I use uppercase, then it uppercases all of them. Okay, so put it, I'm actually gonna, since I don't have it in the CSS that I gave you guys, I'm gonna go ahead and delete that, and I'm gonna go ahead and also delete this, because this is also not in the, actually, you know what, before I do that, you can instead of creating a class, you can, since you're only gonna do this to this particular line, I can just create this right here, style, and then the commas, and then put text transform capitalize. So this is basically a way to add CSS without having to use your CSS style sheet. You can add it you can add it directly to the element, and it's called an inline styles, which is not a big deal, but you don't want to do this all the time, because everything that you do in this, every style that you do inline will have the utmost authority over that particular tag. So if I wanted to override this in my styles, if I wanted to give all my H1s a uppercase transform, this one will not change. This one will continue to be capitalized, because whatever you do inline, you're affecting the element directly. Therefore, you're telling, I know what you're doing to every H1, but to this one, you told it specifically to do this to it, so it will respect this inline style. So, and you don't want that. You want to be able to change your stuff around here without giving too much authority to one specific. So here it is. It's already done. So yeah, we can leave that here actually, so that way I don't have to fix this. Alright, so we're done with that, and then the next one is going to be just a real simple description, which is not going to have any big thing about it. So I'm just going to go ahead and add and lorem ipsum and put that in there, hit enter, and here we go. So we are now on here, we're getting that far already, so we're good. So we're gonna move on now, and we already created this section. So we're gonna move on with the next section, which is gonna be the newsletter section, and this one here. Okay. All right. So you guessed it, you're gonna need this section. Oh, by the way, I just used Emmet. Okay. Remember that you can use Emmet, which comes already built in Visual Studio, that you don't have to do this, you know, the tags or whatever, you can just section, you can do section ID newsletter tab, and it would already create this the HTML for you. So yeah, it's faster, it's a good way to do it, you know, if you already know HTML. But the reason why I haven't been using it, and the reason why I don't want you to use it, and I explained this before, is because I want you to get used to using HTML. I want you to get used to coding it and know what it needs in the syntax. So if you can refrain from using it, please do so. So I'm gonna add it automatically here, ID newsletter. And again, the reason why I'm using an ID is because eventually this form could potentially be useful and actually send an email to, or an email, you know, account or whatever, you know, like lewis@email.com to your email, so that they can subscribe to something, right? And that's done with the form, which we're gonna get there. And inside that form, you need, and that ID will need a form so it can process. So you kind of need an ID wrapping this whole thing. All right, so inside the ID, we're gonna again create a container, because you see this dead space on the sides. We're gonna create a container here, so div class container, and now you can start seeing some repetitive pattern here, how you have a section and then a container, and then you have here a footer, and then you have a container. So that container class is gonna need it a lot, because you want things to be centered and not go all the way to the end. You don't want this F to be stuck over here, you don't want this S to be stuck over here, you don't want this G to be stuck over here. So your container, which is the navigation container, doesn't have not your container, your navigation element doesn't have a container. Therefore the navigation does touch over here, but inside the navigation you have a container. Inside the navigation you have a container that contains everything else inside it. So you want the navigation to touch, the navigation element to touch, but the stuff inside you don't want it to touch. So the stuff inside will be in a container, not the navigation. Same thing with here, the showcase. You want the showcase to touch here, but the stuff inside you don't. So you want the container inside to wrap the stuff inside the showcase, not outside of the showcase. The showcase, you want the showcase to be outside of the container so it touches. And that's the same thing we're doing to the newsletter. You want the newsletter, which is this black stuff, to touch all the way over, but the stuff inside a container so it doesn't touch everything. Okay, so now here we're going to introduce a new class, and this one is the row. Actually no, it's not a new class. I think I already touched this one too in the footer. Did I? Yeah, I did. I talked about rows, and I talked about the columns classes that divide. This one, for example, divides into two pieces, equal pieces, because the width of the Bootstrap classes is always going to be 12. So when you divide 1 by 6 and another 1 by 6, it gives you 2, right? So 6 and 6 is 12. So this is basically what we're doing here. And here we're doing the same thing. We have one here, one element here, and then we have one element here, and that's 2 elements. So therefore it's going to need 2 containers, 2 column containers. Okay, so I'm going to create my first one, div class, and that's going to be column medium, because I want it to remain 2 columns all the way to the medium size, which is what do you call it, tablets. Okay, no, sorry, laptops. Anything underneath laptops, it would just be full width. So this is me specifying the starting size that I want this to be at 6 blocks, at 6 columns, or actually at 6 width of columns. Okay, create that, and since I'm gonna need 2, I'm gonna copy that and paste it. So now I got 2 of them. Let me open some space here and some space there and here, so I know what I'm working. And so the first one is just gonna have a simple text. So I'm gonna have an h1 tag in there that's gonna say subscribe to our newsletter. Subscribe to our newsletter. Okay, and that's done. And the next one is going to have a little form in there. So here we go. Let me go ahead and save this. You can see that it's already there. It's great. So now we're going to actually will introduce something new, and that's going to be the form ID, the form element. Every time you use any type of input fields like this, or like a contact form or something like that, that is meant to send input, user input to, for example, your database or your email provider or anywhere where it's going to be collected, it needs to be inside of a form. Okay, and that form is going to be eventually processed through PHP with, well, in this case PHP, but it could be any backend language. It's going to be processed with the backend language that has an email processor and or a form processor code, and then it's going to be a different kind of code, not HTML. It's going to be a different kind of code that's going to be used for that, for processing this this information, that or all this input, and be sent to the database or eventually to an email provider, so like you could get that stuff in your Outlook or Gmail or whatever. But we're not gonna do that stuff here in this class, because this is specifically for just front end. So basically this is pretty much how far you will get with building a form as a front end developer. Then you would basically turn this over to your backend developer, and your backend developer will make sure to make the form, you know, put the plumbing behind the walls so the form could work. Okay, so for right now we're just gonna go on with our front end. So we're gonna give this a class so it can have a style, and it's gonna be a subscribe class. Subscribe, there you go. Alright, so now inside the form we're gonna have from Bootstrap, and I'm just gonna go ahead and paste it here. So if you go to Bootstrap, you're gonna be able to see, remember, Bootstrap and getbootstrap.com. So if you go here and you go to components, get started, components, and you go to components, you're gonna see form in there, forms. So you can look through here and find it, and it's going to be in there somewhere. I'm looking for form groups. Nope, not yet, and not yet. Where are you? Okay, so like this one, for example, or I thought there was one that was specifically built with the code. And there's another one here, another one here, another one here, whatever. So so you get the idea. So you get, this is specifically for downloading files and stuff like that. But you can go through some of this right here and look at the way that you want your form to look. So like this username could work. So if you look at the code for this, and you look at the one that has username, this one, you can see the input group class in here. So the only thing is that you have to make sure, if you want the button on the other side, that you put this prepend on the other side of here after this, so that way it's, instead of prepend, it's gonna be append. And I'm sure it's in here, you just gotta look for it. Okay, I'm not gonna spend too much time on this because I'm already kind of giving you the code anyway, so you look for it on your own. But there is the append class basically. So this is how it is. Basically, this is the entire code you're gonna need. You're gonna need a div wrapper class with an input group. This is a Bootstrap class that is defined specifically from Bootstrap. I didn't make this one up, so therefore you're probably not gonna find it in here. and it's coming directly from Bootstrap and our reference here, this Bootstrap CSS right here. This Bootstrap CSS that we're referencing is stored in this CDN right here remotely somewhere in the server of Bootstrap. They are pushing this thing out for anyone and everyone to want to use it, and in this case we're one of those people that are using it right now. So this CSS right here is the one that is basically referencing this class in here. Okay, so we have a div with an input group class that wraps an input and a button. So the input is basically that input field that you saw, this input field, and is type email. The reason why it's type email is because it's pre-formatted, so that if I enter something like that and I leave it alone, then the validation, if it was working that way, if it had backend development, the validation will throw an error and say, hey, that's not an email because the input that you're using is an email. It forces me to use an email format, which is going to be characters at characters dot characters. So it doesn't even have to be a valid email. Okay, then it has a placeholder, which it could be anything you want. It could be enter email or enter your email, whatever you want. Let me get to the one right here. See, enter your email, and this is a placeholder. This means that whatever I type in here is gonna go away once I start typing. Okay, so this is helpful. Not every input field that you design and that you put up there needs to have a placeholder, so don't go too crazy with this. Some input fields are very self-explanatory and doesn't need the placeholder, so don't go too crazy. So this class here is to style the particular input field, so it has this little round borders, and it's white, and it's this height and this width and all that stuff. And again, this form control is also a Bootstrap class, and then it has a div right next to it, and this div has an input group append, which is a Bootstrap class, and it basically puts whatever you put next to it, it appends it, like it sticks it right with it. Instead of having it on the side with a little gap on the side on between them, it sticks it right to it. And then it has a button in there, which is basically the button. Okay, and it's type submit, which means that once this has some backend built into it, if I click on subscribe, it would send it and it would submit it. It would submit that form, that email to the database or wherever it's gonna go. And then the class, which is to style the button so that it is red and it has this little white border and all that stuff. And then the text, it could be subscribe, it could be submit, it could be whatever you want it to be. All right, so I'm gonna make sure I save this, and it's already done there. So we're so far so good. So we built that, and now we can go ahead and minimize that, and we're gonna do the last section too, so that we can be done with our index page, and then we can go ahead and close this video. Oops. So we're gonna, again, you guessed it, we're gonna have a section, and this one I'm gonna give it an ID of boxes. Alright, now in this ID of boxes, this is creating this white section, but you don't want this C or this C here actually to be stuck over here on the side. So what do you think is gonna go here? Yep, that's right, a container. You got it. All right, and then we're gonna create a row because we want this stuff to be responsive, so we want it to be in a row. And then inside the row we're gonna use what? 3 columns, right? 1, 2, and 3 columns. So just like we did a 2 column here, we're gonna do a 3 column here. So I'm gonna create 3 columns. Class. Alright, so remember, we know that it is 12 in width. So what's 12 divided by 3 columns? That's 4. So column anything from medium and up 4, right? Because 3 times 4 is 12. So let me show you what I mean. This is my first box, this is my second one, and my third box. So I have 3, which together they equal 12, and that's what you want to do. If you do this, you're gonna have a tiny one in the middle, and then these 4, but this equals 11. So this will be a little bit of center, and you will have a lot more white space on the end of the side over here, okay, because it's not distributed evenly. So it's even now. And then inside, I'm gonna go ahead and actually copy this and put it in there. Alright, so inside I have this. I have a div with a class box, and then inside I have an image, which is my treadmill image, which I already have it in here, and then an h3 tag, and then a paragraph. And that right there, this structure that you see there, will give me exactly this that you see here. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and use and copy and paste the rest. And you can pause the video if you want to tag along. You can pause the video and do it, you know, make sure you type them all up. I'll go ahead and save now, and once I save, I go to my thing here. Oops, I see a problem. My images are not loading, and the reason why is because this is not targeting the right one. So I need a dot here so it can go from the index, so it can go directly into the image folder. Okay, let's test it out. Wait, sorry, we are okay, so we're in the same path with the image, so it doesn't need this. What's going on here? What did I do? Treadmill. Okay, what did I do? So it's not going back, and it's not going. Alright, let me see. Why is it not reading it? Alright, so image. Alright, maybe it's forcing me to go to assets. Oh, okay, I see. This is the actual path that we're in, not the image. I'm sorry, I forgot that the index is outside of assets. So yeah, I need to start from assets. So yeah, so I have to go one step out to assets. It's already there, and then image, and then treadmill. Okay, there it is. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy this and replace it here, and replace it here, and now they're showing. Alright, yeah, alright, sorry. Okay, so I hope that you were able to pause it and, you know, and do your own coding so you can tag along. But basically, you are now in good shape. You have a pretty decent homepage. You can continue to add sections and add more stuff all the way down here if you want to, and then mess around with it and create your own styles if you dare. Just make sure so you don't break anything, and you can continue along. You can create a comment here, something like that. That's not gonna work in this. This is for, and there you go. And then you can call it like custom CSS here, right? So you can do something like that, and then start adding all your CSS down here. So if anything you have to delete it on the next video, you can always just delete all of this, and you'll be fine. You'll be exactly where we are right now. Okay, but you can go ahead if you want to have some homework of your own, and inside here, and you want to call it playground. Homework playground. There you go, homework playground, and close your homework playground in here. And then in here, create your own section. Create your own section, and you don't have to give it an ID if you don't want to. Give it a class if you want to. Do something. It just have at it. Okay, have some fun in there, and make sure that everything you do adds down here. Make sure that it looks nice. Make sure it uses all the Bootstrap classes you need. You can come to Bootstrap here and mess around with any other stuff here and put them in there. Anything you want. Okay, and then that'll give you, some familiarity with HTML and with Bootstrap as well. Okay, and then if you need some styles and you want to do it, like I said, you can do it down here. Then once you're done, you can go ahead and delete it, save it somewhere else, whatever, and then continue from the video from this point on. Okay, all right, well, I'll see you in the next one.